Ooh. Things like this, which is soundproofing. Soundproofing. I've got an extra 12 inches of more hose. I want to pull this out the right way. If you are wondering what I'm doing with all these boxes, well, I don't know. Hello, and welcome back to Zach Does It. I'm Zach, and in today's episode, if it's not obvious already, we are going to be taking a look at everything that I've ordered so far to put back into Mama. Some things are probably obvious, nuts and bolts and other things that I've broken along the way, whereas other things maybe aren't so obvious, or maybe I haven't mentioned them explicitly yet. For example, this insulation and the soundproofing that goes with it. It was one of those things that was kind of a priority. It was in the back of my head. But after tearing everything out and realizing how much effort that was, it kind of just made sense for me to go ahead and bite the bullet, spend the money now, and take care of it. Hopefully, what it'll result in is a much quieter ride and a much more enjoyable driving experience. And hopefully I won't have to do this again. But for now, we have a lot of boxes. We got to get cracking on opening them. We're burning daylight as I speak, and this is prime time for me to get all of my work done. But for now, we want to dive in and figure out what all I bought. I hope everything's here. One package actually literally just arrived before I started filming, and I think that might be the last piece that was blocking me from putting all of this back together. So let's dive in. Okay. Wow, I am lightheaded. Man, really need to go to the gym. Anyways, first up today we have some soundproofing. This is Dynamat. It's one of the recommended ones. There's any number of brands out there. This just happens to be the one that I found that was in my price range and the quantity I wanted and all the other options. So we are going to look at taking this soundproofing and putting it all over the metal surfaces inside of the Miata. Now, soundproofing is a really, really incredible material. It's mostly just like a rubberized type material with some really, really sticky adhesive on it, but the magic is that it dampens a lot of vibrations. So when you're driving down the road and you've got a flimsy little Miata with a bunch of small pieces of sheet metal that are tightened or attached to each other using screws or other types of fasteners, that metal tends to rattle and vibrate. And as you're driving and as the car ages, those vibrations get worse and worse. So the goal is that we can take this soundproofing material and put it on choice pieces. For example, all of those metal pieces, the big ones that I painted earlier, that's metal on metal contact. And if I put some soundproofing in there and maybe some foam tape along the edges where they connect to one another, I'll be able to mitigate or dampen a lot of those vibrations. The end goal being a much quieter ride. Unfortunately, this type of soundproofing and this solution doesn't do a lot for the road noise that comes from the soft top. So at the end of the day, we're gonna have to find another solution to quiet down the soft top noise, or we'll just have to invest in something like a hard top, which is very expensive and kind of hard to find these days. So hopefully this will do a good enough job that we won't have to worry about the soft top noise or any other kind of road noise for a while. But ultimately, we have everything out of the car. It took a lot of effort. We broke some dash and trim pieces along the way. So I'd rather put this in now while everything is apart and not have to come back to this down the road. So soundproofing, it's I think a pretty good investment. I think in total, we'll get to some of the other pieces that are part of this kit, but in total, this was roughly $250. So it's It's a little steep, but hopefully we'll be able to tell a really big difference in the road noise. In fact, I'm gonna go back and look at some of the audio recordings I did from the first episode and see how the recording changes. You know, if I keep all of my settings the same and I drive on some of those same roads at the same speeds, I might be able to tell. I'll do my best to do that in the video editing software so that I can report back as to exactly how quiet this is. Unfortunately, I don't have a decibel meter.
There's an app for that.
I can't measure how loud it is inside the cabin.
There's an app for that.
In the future, that might be a good investment for me, but
there's even an app for that.
For now, we're just going to trust that this is going to work, cross our fingers, do the installation, and then we'll see what we can figure out. Other parts of this kit. This is the Dynamat kit, so this goes on first. It's a very sticky, very thin kind of layer of rubber or a rubberized material, and this goes down first. You roll it in with this sweet roller.
Whoa!
The goal being no air bubbles, because sound travels through any kind of matter, but when it encounters things like air, it'll continue to translate. Ultimately, the better you apply this soundproofing, the better it works. If I kind of just throw this on and there's air bubbles everywhere, it's not going to do its job the way I want it to. So we want to be very careful while we're applying this. We want to take our time, and we really want to roll it out to make sure that everything is sticking to each other and we get the best results we're looking for. The final piece of it is this. And again, it's all part of a kit, so we're sticking with the same brand, but we have this Dynapad. Now, this is an this is an insulation layer, but it still also helps in the soundproofing. In fact, on here, it kills low frequency exhaust noises and road noises, engine noises, and it blocks the heat. So after we've applied the first layer, the Dynamat layer, we take this Dynapad and then we'll cut this up so it fits in specific areas, but we can put this under places like the footwells for the driver and the passenger. This may go in the trunk as well, or on the shelf behind the seats. But the goal of this is just to provide an extra layer on top of the Dynapad for things like heat and noise, and also to cushion some of those surfaces. You know, if I just have this in the wheel well, it's going to be a very hard surface. So when I'm driving, or if I'm doing anything inside of there, it's just going to be me on top of the carpet, on top of the soundproofing, on top of the metal. But with this, it'll at least be a little bit softer and hopefully a little bit more comfortable to ride in, and especially for the passenger. That's probably where a lot of this is going to go. So we've got the Dynamat for the first layer, we've got a roller to help apply it, and we have the Dynapad for the final layer before we put the carpet back in. So what's next? Up next, we have a mix and match variety of foam tapes and sheets, and I think there's another one somewhere in these boxes, but we'll get to that. And if you remember, when we took the heater core housing apart, there were different types of foam on the outside, on the inside, on those individual paddles that control where the air goes. You've got things like this You've got things like this rubber foam sheet that were used on the extreme hot or extreme cold surfaces of that blower housing. And then on things like this that were used on the outside areas near where the vents were, we've got some additional foam tape. Now, I did order a ton of extras. I mentioned this with the soundproofing, but the goal is that we can use some of the leftover parts of this tape to line where metal contacts metal. So all of those panels that cover things like the fuel tank and the fuel hoses and everything that's sitting on that back shelf, if we can put a layer of this underneath those sheets between the two metal surfaces, that should further help reduce a lot of the rattling or the road noise, even if maybe we don't get the screws or bolts as tight as they need to be. So we've got some foam here. I think there's one more in one of the future packages that I still have yet to open and unbox. But this is, I think, a really good investment. It's really cheap compared to some of the other parts that we're going to be putting in. And ultimately, it'll give us a much better experience. We won't have leaky vents. We won't be venting AC into the dash instead of the cabin. Same thing with heat. We want to make sure that all the air goes where we want it to. So foam sheets, foam tape, get plenty of it because there's so many different applications for it. All right, next up, we have a mix and match variety of fasteners, nuts, bolts, screws, the whole 9 yards. So we have things like these bolts. We need I'm making a lot of noise here. So we need a variety of these to put back in the car to replace some of those broken pieces. I've got a variety pack for a couple different reasons. The first reason I got the variety packs is because it's a lot easier to deal with. It's a little wasteful in that I bought some sizes that I don't need, but the good news is that I didn't get the massive 720,000 piece boxes because I don't need that many. But I got the smaller ones that were a little bit cheaper and came with a few less components, but this is much more tailored to what I need. So we've got the fasteners for things like the parking brake, the seats even, but anything where we've got these little bit beefier bolts to hold things together. We have a large number of trim screws because they're everywhere. So these are gonna come in handy for many, many parts of the Miata. And then lastly, we've got all those plastic trim pieces. In fact, it's gonna be hard to see, but we'll go over this more as we're putting it in. It's literally got every type of fastener at every size that I was able to measure in the Miata. I measured them all as I came out. I made sure that each of these was checking one of those boxes, and I placed the order. I think I messed up. I got 2 of these. I don't remember if I did that intentionally, but if it turns out that I've got extras, well, hey, I've got extras. I won't have to be as careful in the future when I take things apart again. So tons of fasteners, screws, bolts, everything I need to hopefully put it back together without having to go back to the hardware shop. All right, we are on to the mystery packages. Well, they're not really a mystery package, I just forgot what I bought. The snow and the delays in shipping and just the fact that I've been buying parts over the past 2 weeks means that I've kind of forgotten what all I bought. Those were easy, those were obvious because they were in their own packages and I could see exactly what it was, but now we've got some mystery boxes that we get to open like it's Christmas Day. And this is kind of the best part about having a project car is you've got all of this cool stuff and you forget what you bought and things just randomly show up at your doorstep and you go, oh my God, I totally forgot I bought that, but I'm so glad I did. So the first mystery box, let's see what it is. Ooh, tear along the line. I don't even need a knife. Okay. Ooh. So these are some expensive bolts or screws. When I was taking the bumper apart to see what was broken in there, I somewhat regret doing that. I probably should have left it together as a single piece, but I found a large number, about 8 in total, of these things called shoulder screws. And I hope you can see that, but basically what it is it's a screw or a bolt that has a shoulder. So this little bit is kind of used as a spacer, and in the bumper where it mounts to the bracket and all the other components, you've got a couple layers of metal and plastic to go through before you get to the washer. And each of those holes is oversized, especially compared to the size of the screw portion of the bolt. So what a shoulder screw does is it allows that bolt to sit in that large hole without giving it too much play. So, and we'll look at this later when we're installing this. Well, hopefully these are the right sizes. I measured like 5 times before I placed the order, but hopefully what that means is that there will be maybe one direction of play because those holes are ovular, but they won't play in the other direction back and forth. So the goal is that 6 of these hold the bumper to the car, and then there's another 4 of them that hold the bumper to its underlying support. There's a big plastic kind of air box that the bumper needs to mount to as well. So hopefully these are the right pieces. I got 2 sizes. I ordered them from McMaster Car, and I believe the total was about 180 bucks for 8 bolts. So these are very expensive compared to normal ones, but ultimately they are what I needed in order to reattach my bumper to my car and drive legally in this state. So Very expensive bolts. I hope I don't lose them. And I really hope I didn't order the wrong size. So more on that later. Actually, I can tell you exactly how much it was. No, I can't. This is just a packing list, not an invoice. Sorry. Mystery package number 2. Ooh. Perfect. Oh, not perfect. This is not exactly what I had hoped for. I did mention that I thought another set of the foam sheets was in one of these boxes. Unfortunately, this is absolutely not what I expected it to be. One of those sheets, actually, let me go get it. These sheets are a rubberized foam sheet, and they were intended for the extreme hot or cold portions of those flaps inside the heater core housing. And these sheets, to withstand the higher temperatures or lower temperatures from the AC, are supposed to be rubberized. It's a much more dense material, and it's closed cell, so it's supposed to be really good for that type of material. And the other rubber that I thought this was, I guess I must have read the description wrong and the name of it and all the other stuff. I'll have to figure out where I messed up. These were supposed to be open cell, very much like the tapes, where it's very squishy, it just kind of takes up some space, and it helps you seal cracks and edges so that airflow doesn't end up where you don't want it. But unfortunately, this is also dense, rubberized, closed cell foam. So I am going to try installing this because frankly, I don't have time to order more. I'm gonna try installing this and see if it works. Hopefully I don't have any leaks. Hopefully when I select the air to come out of the top vents, I don't feel it coming out of the bottom ones. But that's really unfortunate. But I guess lesson learned, do my homework even longer than I did before. All right, we are on to the final 2 boxes, and both of these came from Mazda Miata, so I've got a good idea of what's in these. Although this one's throwing me for a loop because it's big enough to be something that I ordered that was on back order. So I'm like really excited that I might have actually gotten a part that shouldn't have been in stock, but I also want to keep my expectations low in case it actually is just all the other stuff that I ordered. So we'll see what we have. And we've got a packing list, which is going to confirm that those parts were on back order. Yep, there's no extended price. Yep, those are still listed as back orders. So, I mean, maybe they were able to order shipped, quantity shipped. Oh, you know what? This box may be all of those parts, and this one may be the second order. Maybe the back order happened quick. Oh my God, I am gonna be so excited. Oh, this is what I think it is. I'm gonna be so excited. Okay, we don't need paper. Okay, first up, let's make some room here. We're running out of space. Okay, so first up, this is a bag of goodies. It is replacement hoses for, I think, everything in the cooling system. So if we just take a quick look, actually, let's open the bag. Okay, so if we take a quick look, we should see things like, I believe this is for the heater core to get in there. We'll have to look up the part numbers before we put these in to make sure the right pieces go in the right places. I believe this also is part of the coolant line that takes coolant from the engine into the heater core. Actually, this is a radiator hose, that's a radiator hose, that's radiator. There we go. So these are the 2 pieces I needed the most. I had to cut both of these off of the heater core and going into the engine because they were basically glued. All the other hoses were actually in really good condition and I didn't have to replace. So I'm actually gonna plan on saving these for now because those were in good condition and we're gonna be replacing parts anyway. So if I don't have to replace these hoses again or if I can just use them later, we're gonna do that. But for now, these were the two that I really needed. And it's a good thing I went to the store to buy an extra bit, because inside the heater core on, I don't know if it's the return or the inlet, there's actually more of this hose that is really gross and ugly that I had to cut off. So I've got an extra, I think I've got an extra 12 inches of more hose just in case I do need any extras, and it's about this size. So really excited that these came in. I'll be able to replace all the cooling hoses if I decide to do that. But again, for now, it looked like everything was in good enough condition. So let's put these back. So I recognized a lot of those parts, but it's really important before I go putting any of these back on to make sure I check the part numbers and put them in the right places. Otherwise, my life may become a living hell as I spend 30 minutes trying to put the wrong hose on the wrong piece and wondering why things don't line up. So I've got all the parts. All of them are in individual bags with individual part numbers. So all I have to do is look at a big parts diagram. I can link to that in the description so that if you need to find your own part numbers, you can do that. But I can just reference that real quick, find the right hose, change it out, and we'll be good to go. All right, next up. Okay, so these are pretty basic. In fact, I probably could have gotten some foam. Actually, this feels very much like some of that other foam that we've got over there, that rubberized foam, which is good because that means that in the future, I don't have to buy these. I can just trace them and cut them out on my own. But these are gaskets for the tail lights. When I took mine off, they just kind of disintegrated. They were very, very thin after probably being on the car for 30 years, and they just totally disintegrated. So I got a couple taillight gaskets. That way we can make sure that water stays out of the trunk when it rains, and we'll be good to go. So those are quick and easy. We'll get those installed. The piece de resistance. Got to be very careful with this because the last one shattered into a million pieces. But here we have the hood or the shroud for the gauge cluster. So the other one I had was just cracked. It had 3 or 4 cracks in it, and when I looked on the inside, I could see some residue from some epoxy. I could tell it had been repaired a couple times, and that's also why it just totally shattered when I took it out. So we got a replacement. I think this was like 75 bucks. It's, you know, it's a little pricey. I didn't want to have to spend that, but at the end of the day, I've got a new dash. I've got this, and hopefully I'll be able to put both in crack-free, and I'll have a nice looking bunch of plastic to look at, which is actually another good point. I'm not going to show it in this video. We'll see that when I start transferring some components from my old dash to the new dash, but I was able to find one at a local junkyard. It's called Mike's Auto. If you're ever around Harrisburg or Middletown in PA, he's got a Miata graveyard. I mean, I think there were a dozen Miatas out front, and he's got a ton in the back. So if you ever need Miata parts, go find Mike's Auto in Middleton, and he'll be able to hook you up. I got my dash for about 200 bucks. It's got no cracks. There's one tiny piece that was broken, but I don't think it's going to be a big deal. So yeah, I'm happy. I'm really happy that I will not have a cracked gauge cluster shroud. Man, we're actually going to put that back in here because I don't want to break this one. There's nothing worse than spending a lot of money on stuff and then breaking that stuff. So this is going back in the box. Okay. This has to be what I think it is. It can't be anything else because that was everything I thought was shipped. Yep, there's no extended price. Yep, those are still listed as back order. Everything that was not on back order was in that box. So, what's in this box? Leave a comment below. If you can guess this, we'll find a prize. We'll figure something out. But if you can guess what this is, we'll figure out some way of recognizing your incredible mental prowess, your genius among men, among mortals. I really want to dig in. And yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just really excited about this right now. It's paper! I'm just kidding. Oh, it is. Yep, there's no extended price. Yep, those are still listed as back order. Oh my God. Okay, let's, how are we gonna do this? Where's the top? I wanna pull this out the right way. Wait a minute. Beautiful. Except this isn't what I ordered. I don't think it is. Oh. You know, sometimes you trick yourself into getting really excited about something. Oh, it is. Only to realize that you totally forgot about a very critical, important piece that was not in that box. Yep, there's no extended price. Yep, those are still listed as back order. I thought this was the redesigned center console. And that's why I got so excited, because it has cup holders and I could finally drive and have coffee without spilling it in my lap and suing McDonald's. But I guess for now, I'm just gonna have to be happy with this rear trim piece. And we'll take a look in a sec. I've gotta dig some stuff out of the bottom of this real quick. It's paper! I'm just kidding. Anyways, I'm still excited. It's just, I'm not as excited as I thought I would be. Oh, nice. They gave me some mounting hardware. And those are actually rusted out pretty bad, so I'm glad it came with that. Okay, so if you don't recognize this piece, it is called a rear finish panel, if you ever have to look one up. And while I was taking my car apart, I was disorganized and I left this on the ground, very close to where I was working, and it got stepped on and it shattered, very much like the shroud and other plastic pieces, into a million pieces. So I had to get a new one. It's black. It'll be on a red car. The color combo won't look terrible, but at some point I will be getting this painted so that we can have an all red Miata. But we at least now have a rear finish panel, and we'll be able to put our license plate back on and get us home. So it's not the center console that I wanted. That is still on back order, but it is a necessary piece for me to get back on the road. So rear finish panel, don't break it. I think this was $80, $100. It actually might have been more. It might have been 200. I'll have to double check, and we'll put some of the totals down in the description. But yeah, just a lot of plastic. Well, there you have it. This is everything I've ordered so far, except those two pieces that are on back order. And we are going to start reassembling everything. It's very likely going to be multiple episodes. I don't want these to be 40, 50, 60-minute long episodes. I want them to be a little short and sweet. That way you can find some of the parts or specific pieces of information that you're looking for. If you want to know how to do the soundproofing, that will be its own episode. If you want to know how to reassemble the heater core housing and all those other air handling components, that will be another episode. That way you've got a bit easier time finding the piece of information you're looking for. Again, this is as much a journey for me as it is for you. I want to make sure that this content is either helping you save money from not making the same mistakes as me, or hopefully pointing you in the right direction for parts that I need. For example, those shoulder bolts. If you have to order some, let me know. I've got the measurements, I've got the order number. If these in fact are the right size, I can give you all of that information and you can go ahead and order your own. Hell, if these end up being the right ones, I might even order a ton on my own, because you start getting bulk discounts once you get into the higher numbers. And if these turn out to be in high demand, we may want to go all in and kind of place a bigger order and then distribute from there, but we'll see. So this is everything. Let's get cracking. And by let's get cracking, I mean we'll do that in the next episode. I really shot myself in the foot by trying to do all of this work and editing and uploading and social media and work and housework and all the other things that happen in life, I tried cramming it all into a 3-week period. And obviously, it takes a lot longer than that to do all of those things, so we're here playing catch up. So in the next episode, we will start reassembling Mama and putting her back together as you see her now. But here we are 30 minutes into an unboxing video on a channel about getting things done and a series about rebuilding a 30-year-old hairdresser's go-kart. I don't think we've done anything yet, but we're getting there. And we're still not done, at least for this episode. Before we go, I did want to give y'all an actual status update with totals and costs and where we are in the project. Now, more of the details will be in the description, but I want to hit on some of the high-level dollar values and time values so you have an idea of what it took for me to go through this process. For starters, there's the car, obviously. I bought this Miata for $3,000. It was a good deal, especially compared to what is out on the market today. Right now, people would be paying about $5,000 or $6,000 or maybe even $7,000 for this car in this condition after all the work I put into it. So I think I got a good deal. On top of that, the wheels alone are worth somewhere in the ballpark of $800 to $1,000. I believe they're Koenig decograms, and I think they're 15 by 9s. I haven't measured them, and obviously it's not printed on the wheel anywhere, so I can't verify without measuring it. But I will take care of that, and I'll figure that out as well. So I think for $3,000, this was a good buy. After that, the next big ticket item, I'm looking at my notes on the side over here. The next big ticket item was all of the purchases from Mazda Miata. So that includes things like the hose kit and the shifter rebuild kit, which I didn't show in this episode. That actually showed up later on after I had done the mechanical check. But all of that totaled out to around $950 in those parts. Again, that includes other things too. It includes a $100 car cover, so I don't have to worry about Mama being exposed to the elements. So that's in there. Again, the specific line items are going to be in the description so you can see what costs what. Full disclosure, Mazda Miata's prices are different than what I paid. In fact, looking at the center console, the redesigned center console, I paid about $250 for it, and it's already about $265, $270. So prices are fluctuating. That hose kit actually was about $20 cheaper right now today when I'm recording, but I ended up paying close to $100, $101, I believe. So prices may fluctuate, but ballpark range, I spent about $950 at Mazda Miata. The next big group of purchases came from Amazon, where I spent about $600. That covered everything from foam tape to foam padding to the soundproofing and insulation and a bunch of other miscellaneous pieces that were a lot easier to source from Amazon as opposed to 10 different Miata suppliers. The replacement window crank on the passenger side, that's included in that cost as well. So Amazon was kind of the catch-all for miscellaneous pieces that I couldn't find elsewhere. After that, we've got things like Advanced Auto, where I spent about $400 for things like oil and fluids and filters and anything I needed for the mechanical checks. After that was the dash, where I bought it from Mike's Auto down in Middletown, PA. That was $200 to get this crack-free dash. And lastly, looking at my notes, is the McMaster car order. I can't talk today. The final ticket item is everything I got from McMaster Car, so those custom shoulder screws to remount the bumper that I should never have taken off in the first place. Again, that was about $200 in total for 14 bolts. These are some very expensive screws. They had to be custom ordered, and it took 2 weeks for me to get them. So I wouldn't recommend using those. I would actually recommend finding some other stainless steel alternative that fits and works and gets the job done. You'll have a lot easier time, and you won't have to go through that hassle. But lesson learned, I did it the hard way. I spent way too much money, and now you get to learn from me. But all said and done, when I total all of those up, it's about $5,400, $5,500 for the car, the parts, and everything I've put into it. Now, obviously, that doesn't take labor into consideration. It doesn't take my time into consideration. And there may be a few miscellaneous pieces that I missed in those totals. But rough ballpark, this is roughly a $5,500 Miata, the way I have it right now. So there we have it. And that about does it for this episode. It's been a long one, but it's had a lot of dense information in it, so I hope you found it useful. If you learned something new or you got inspiration for a new project of your own, give me a thumbs up and let me know in the comments what you've got going on in your life. I want to know what kind of projects y'all have been working on. And if you actually want to see me finish what I started, be sure to hit the subscribe button and bell notification icon so you know when each new episode drops. I promise we actually finish this project. If this is any indication that everything came back together, then you know what is in store. I promise we will get there. It just takes a lot of time to sort through all the video that I've got. Anyways, this has been another long episode of Zach Does It. Again, I hope you've learned something new and you've enjoyed this process so far. I can't wait to see you in the next one, and I can't wait to finally have everything back together so we can start on some of those performance upgrades we've been wanting so bad. I can't wait for the brakes and the suspension. I can't wait for an engine rebuild. I can't wait. I'm so excited. So we'll see you on the next one.